Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So we're on lesson number 2 from the Believer's Handbook from Qur'an Memorization. Inshallah, we're going to continue on in the chapter of why is it important to memorize the Qur'an. So I stopped at, I said, we should take advantage of the ease which has been given to us by our Creator and Sustainer. We find ease in reading the Qur'an, ease in memorizing the Qur'an, and ease in understanding the Qur'an, but we choose to give our attention to so many other things other than the Qur'an. Allah warned us from turning our backs on this Qur'an and warned us of the consequences when He said, وَمَنْ نَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in this ayah, He said, وَمَنْ نَعْرَضَ أَعْرَضَ, it means to turn your back and to turn away from something, to abandon something, to leave it. He said, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, so whoever turns his back and abandons the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّ لَهُ, then verily he will have what? مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. Ma'isha, it means his life. His whole, everything about his life will be what? ضَنْكَ. It will be constricted and ضيق and just full of misery, full of tribulations, full of pain and suffering. All because he turned away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously the remembrance of Allah is the Qur'an. But also the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everything that goes with this Qur'an to help us understand it. So even if he abandons the sunnah, he abandons, learning the deen and practicing the deen, and all of this goes back to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his abandonment. He said, وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. So he said, and we're going to raise him up on the day of judgment blind. So the person, obviously he gets the opposite effect, the opposite of the person who what? Who remembers Allah, because we know that with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we find tranquility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَلَى بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. And in the whole ayat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. So الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, so the people who believe, وَتَطْمَئِنُّ, and their hearts are tranquil, and they feel this, they have this feeling of sakina, this serenity, this feeling of tranquility. Their hearts are full of this tranquility. What? With the dhikr, with the mention, with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. And it's only with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the hearts will find this tranquility. So if the person is not remembering Allah and he's going away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then obviously he's going to be going into the opposite of the tranquility, the itma'nan. He's going into the ma'ishatan dhanka. And it's this restriction of the chest, this constriction of the chest, this narrowness in the chest. It's the opposite of what it takes for a person when he comes into Islam. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned, وَمَنْ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. So whenever a person, he mentions that if he gives him Islam, he said what? وَمَنْ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ, like he opens and expands his chest so the person can accept Islam. He expands his chest to the truth. So what's the opposite of that expansion? If the person goes away from this remembrance and goes away from the ibadah and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he goes into a state of constriction, where his chest becomes narrow. And even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him, he doesn't see it. He can't see it because he's too busy complaining and crying and victimizing himself. So he can't even see the blessings that he has, even right there in front of his face. What a horrible life. He said, وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we will raise him up on the day of judgment, أَعْمَى. And أَعْمَى here is literally blind. It does not mean like blind in the heart or blind, because blind in the heart is al-amah with a ha. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Qur'an, Allahu yastahzi'u bihim wa yamudduhum fi tughyanihim ya'mahun. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions al-istihza. He said Allah subhanahu, because they do istihza. Istihza is a form of, it's like mocking, like mockery. So they're mocking the deen and they're mocking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're mocking the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yastahzi'u bihim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will mock them. But we see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mocks them, Allah mocks them with truth, bil haqq, in truth. He mocks them with the right, and also in a manner that's befitting with His majesty. الَّذِي يَلِيقُ بِجَلَالِهِ. So His greatness and His majesty. So this is the istihza from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bil-haqq. وَإِسْتِهْزَاءُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْكُفَّارِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. It's not in truth. They don't have the right to do any form of istihza. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yastahzi'u bihim is bil-haq. So he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah yastahzi'u bihim wa yamudduhum. And he'll basically like yamudduhum, it means that he'll expand for them, like allow them to further themselves in their transgression, fi tughyanihim, and they're exceeding the boundaries and going into transgression. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow them to even go further, will open up the means for them because of their disobedience and because of their going away from the truth. And he said, fi tughyanihim ya'mahun, that they will continue to further go deeper into their transgression while they're blind, while their hearts are blind. With the blindness of the hearts, like they don't even know where they're going. They don't even have no purpose of what they're doing. They're just going in further and further into transgression, going straight to the hellfire, and they have no clue of why they're doing it. There's no foundational principles. They're doing it all in blindness. Just like a blind man trying to find his way through a forest. Allah musta'an. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I said, this ayah includes all the revelation that was sent down to Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Qur'an and in the Sunnah. Turning away from the Qur'an, from reading the Qur'an, from pondering the Qur'an, and from acting upon the Qur'an will cause nothing but misery in the life of the person who chooses to do so. The person's life will become full of stress and useless distractions. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in an authentic hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, and Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله تعالى يقول يا ابن آدم تفرغ لعبادتي أملأ صدرك غنى وأسد فقرك وإلا تفعل ملأت يديك شغلا ولم أسد فقرك. So here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Hurairah, he reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated this hadith from Allah, which is al-hadith al-Qudsi, and which he said, O son of Adam, Ya ibn Adam, tafarragh. Tafarragh, it means to set aside a time to focus on the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only, like where you have no distractions, like you're completely dedicated in this time that you set aside, this time is only for the worship of Allah, only for the remembrance of Allah, only to use this time to get closer to Allah. This time is not for anybody or anything else. All right. And this is where, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave us advice in this regards, when he told us, and a hadith is also reported on the authority of Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, where he gave us the three times that we should try our best to set aside and to use these times for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. He said, إِنَّ هَذَا الدِّينَ يُسْرٌ وَلَنْ يُشَادَ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ فَسَدِّدُوا وَقَارِبُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا وَيَسِّرُوا وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالْغَدْوَةِ وَالرَّوْحَةِ وَشَيْءٍ مِنَ الدُّلْجَةِ. So he said that verily that this deen is yusr, that this deen is a deen of ease. It's a deen of ease because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed this deen to bring ease to our lives, to make our lives easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal this deen for the purpose of haraj, for difficulty, for embarrassment or for any other thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this deen for the purpose of making life easy for us, making ibadah easy for us, giving us a very, very, like, how can you say, like an organized set of legislation. You see, where everything's laid out for us. All we have to do is just follow it. It's there. Everything's there. All we have to do is what? Just follow. I mean, so everything has been made easy for us. And it's us that makes things. We're the ones that cause the difficulties. And that's why he said, وَلَنْ يُشَاهِدَ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. So nobody's going to, start to make difficulties in this religion, go to extremes and become severe in his actions and try to take on more than he can bear and accept that this religion is going to overpower him. It's going to wash him out because this is a deen of ease. So if you're not a person that is trying to find the ease, then you're going to be washed out. And that's where you see like the Khawarij and people like them, that have gone to these extremes and they got flushed out. He said, فَسَدِّدُوا. And fasaddidu, it means to you strive for perfection, strive to hit the target. And whenever you do an action, do the action. You're striving for perfection in the action. You want to do it exactly in the manner that the Prophet ﷺ did that action. You want to fulfill all the conditions, obviously, al-ikhlas and al-mutaba'ah. And these things are not like non-negotiables. But the second part where he said, وَقَارِبُوا, and if you can't get the perfection, then what? Then do it to the best of, get as close as you can. Get as close as you can to the target. Get as close as you can to perfection. And obviously this is not in regards to those first two non-negotiables. Like the two non-negotiables are the conditions of every worship being accepted. But we're talking about like when you pray, you want to do all the sunan You want to, because after you fulfill the conditions, the conditions and the wajibat, then you want to do the sunnah. You want to perfect you want to do everything in the manner that the Prophet ﷺ did it, to the best of your capabilities. And so this is so you get as close as you can. So if you can't pray standing, you pray sitting. If you can't pray sitting, then you pray lying on your side. So you're doing the best that you can in the situation. I mean, the best of your capabilities. If you don't have water to make wudu, the way that we've been commanded, we don't have any water, or maybe you're sick and you're not allowed to. You can't use water because it might cause your sickness to become worse, or you have an infection or something, or whatever the case may be. Then you do tayammum. So you do the action. We do the next thing. We try to get as close as we can to the target. All right. So he said, "Fasaddidu waqaribu." Wabshiru. Wabshiru, it means to receive glad tidings. Wabshir. Yeah, abshir means like you'll hear this a lot in the Arab world. If you ever say something to somebody like, "Can you do this for me?" He'll say abshir. It means like, receive glad tidings is done, basically. Whenever a person says that, generally he's not going to do it, but he's not going to do what he says he's going to do. But he'll say abshir, abshir, abshir. And he'll probably walk 10 steps and forget exactly what he just told you. But anyways, that's life. But this is what abshiru, it means to like receive glad tidings. That if you do these actions and you try your best to hit the target. If you can't hit the target, you get as close, then abshiru bi what? Bi maghfiratin min rabbikum. And Jannah, inshallah. You have forgiveness from your Lord and you have Jannah. And he said, well, yassiru, and make things easy for the people. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made things easy for you, make things easy for the people. Don't make things difficult. Encourage the people to be able to do the things that they're able to do. Encourage the people to do things that are within their capabilities. It is stupid for you to go up to a person who's working 14, 15 hours a day, telling him, hey man, you should try to memorize 2-3 pages a day so you can go ahead and finish the Qur'an in so and so a time. No, man. This guy's working 14, 15 hours a day. Then he's got to come home to family. If he can memorize one line a day, let's try to encourage him to do that. Let's try to encourage him to memorize one line. And maybe not even one line a day, because maybe he's too busy. Maybe one line every 3-4 days. Whatever's in his means. And we encourage the people to continue working, even if it's little, but to do it with consistency, inshallah. Then he said, wasta'inu. Wasta'inu, it means to seek assistance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing worship at these times. So we're going to use these times to get closer to Allah. And he said, bil ghadwati. Well, ghadwati is the early part of the day. Well, rohati is the later part of the afternoon, getting closer to the nighttime. And he said, wa shay'in min al-dulja. And dulja is the darkness of the night, but here it's in reference to the last third of the night. It's a reference to the last third because that's when it's darkest. It's like they always say, it's always darkest before the dawn. So whenever the darkest time of the night will be the last third of the night, and Allah knows best. And of course, these 3 times, the al-ghadwa wa roha, these are these 2 things were mentioned in the hadith about the birds, where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Lo annakum tatawakkaluna ala Allahi haqqa tawakkulihi la razaqakum kama yarzuqu at-tayr, taghdu khimasan wa taruhu bitanan." Taghdu khimasan. So if only you would put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that's befitting of that you put your trust in Him. What that means is that you put your 100% complete trust in Him. So if you do this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for you just like He provides for the birds. Taghdu khimasan. It leaves out in the early morning on an empty stomach. وَتَرُوحُ بِطَانًا وَرُوحًا. It returns in the roha. It returns in the later part of the day on a full stomach. And of course, like I said, وَشَيْءٍ مِنَ الدُّلْجَةِ, it means that you do things and you set aside, even if it's a little time in the last third of the night, that you set this time aside to what? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So تَفَرَّغْ لِعِبَادَتِي. This is the time that you set these times aside. This is only for Allah. It's not for the people. It's not for conversation. It's not for hanging out. It's not for social media. This is the time that I'm setting aside. And then this is where I'm going to completely engross myself in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things that get me closer to Allah. So he said, Ya Ibn Adam, O son of Adam, tafarragh li-ibadati. So set this time aside and devote yourself to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amla sadrak ghinan, that I will fill your chest with richness. Because again, And al-ghina nafs, like the Prophet ﷺ said, that the true richness, the true wealth, the person being considered wealthy is that the wealth is in his chest. It's not in the wealth that you have in possessions. Possessions can be destroyed. Possessions can be taken away from you. And possessions become old and break down, and cars like the fancy car that the person has today, the Rolls Royce today is, what's it going to look like in 10 years and 15 years? So all of these things are like everything from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has a beginning and it has an end. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and as it gets towards the end, it starts to what? Become broken down and old, and it doesn't look as good as it used to look. And this is the reality of everything. Everything from creation. It has a beginning and it has its end on the earth. So when we look at these types of things and we say, okay, khalas, why would you attach your heart to these types of things? Where the true wealth and the true richness is in the heart. It's not, it's not in the material things, but you can't. That's the type of happiness you're trying to buy. Happiness, and happiness is not bought. Happiness is through the remembrance of Allah. Happiness is through putting your trust in Allah, and happiness is being pleased and satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And this is, subhanallah. So he said, amla sadrak ghinan wa asuddu faqrak. And I will what? And I will do away with your poverty. I will alleviate it from you. So whatever poverty that you're feeling, whatever, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising you if you do this, that He will alleviate. But then the opposite, وَإِلَّا تَفْعَلْ. But if you refuse to do this, so this is the person وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, the person who goes against His turns away from it and abandons it. And he said what? He said, وَإِلَّا تَفْعَلْ مَلَأْتُ يَدَيْكَ شُغَلًا, that I will fill your hands with distractions. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be keeping, that He'll fill your hands with work and distractions that bring you no benefit. He said, وَلَمْ أَسُدَّ فَقْرَكَ, and I will not alleviate your poverty. So obviously it's going back to the remembrance of Allah. And the most important thing with the remembrance of Allah is starting, again, the Qur'an. It's not just memorizing the Qur'an, it's memorizing the Qur'an, seeking the understanding of the Qur'an, finding out, seeing the commands and the prohibitions and the things that we're supposed to be doing as a Muslim and the things that we're not supposed to be doing, and then implementing that in our lives and then calling the people to that. And then after that, I said, therefore, we must choose to busy ourselves with that which brings us benefit in this life and the next. We must choose to busy ourselves with that which brings us closer to Allah. This starts with the Qur'an. Another benefit of memorizing the Qur'an is that it is a source of elevation and status in this life and the next for the one that does it properly. This can be, and again, properly is the person who memorizes the Qur'an, seeks the understanding, implements it, and calls the people to it. This is the person who does it properly and correctly. This can be seen from a statement of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu that was narrated in Muslim. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu anna Nabiya sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala, inna Allah yarfa'u bihadha al-kitabi aqwaman wa yada'u bihi akharin. So here Umar ibn al-Khattab reported that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises a people with this book. He raises a people with this book and He abases others. He lowers others, He drops them, He disgraces them. Because they were given the book, they were given the haqq, they were given the truth, and then they abandoned it, and they turned away from it, and they sought something other than the truth. They decided that the legislation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down is not sufficient for us, that we need to seek legislation outside of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. They felt like that the Qur'an was not a good enough guidance for them, so they had to go seek guidance in other means and other things, and then they became debased, and they became disgraced in this life, and in the next if they don't make tawbah. So Allah musta'an. Allah musta'an. It's a very, very, very serious issue. And it's something that we, this is not a game. This is not a game. This is a very serious matter. Very, very serious matter. Because this is like our one chance. This is like that Russian roulette type of thing. You wouldn't take that as a joke. This is it. This is your one chance, your one opportunity is this life to get things right, to do things right by the permission of Allah. And if you do that, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the tawfiq to do the things correctly, to constantly stay in His remembrance, He rewards you with Jannah. But if you get it wrong, and you waste your life away. Social media, problems and drama with the people, and following the new movies and following sports and following all this type of stuff where all the people place their importance. All of these things are distractions. So you get caught up in the distractions. And it's hellfire. So this is not a joke. It's not a game. I mean, this is like a real serious matter, because this is our only opportunity, our only chance to, and what comes after this is all eternity, is eternity, and whatever we've done in this life, the eternity is going to be what we have the result of our actions in this life. That's it's not a joke. Allah musta'an. وإلهنا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.